we'll do maturation and blending, although I would still call it blending. A lot of what you do is a single cask, if not almost exclusively what you do, which we love as whiskey folk. But it's still, obviously preparing and making sure that the cask is tasting how you want, and it's still part of this blending process. But for actual maturation, what are you filling the casks at? So you have your new make spirit. We talked about distillation. What actually is the ABV going into the casks?
Okay, I basically look at what the Scottish have been doing, because I've been making some pretty good whiskies, and I found they were most of the time filling their barrels at around about 63%, 63.4, 0.5%. So I've stuck to that figure of 63.4 is what I aim at, and I've been getting some very good results with that. And because of that, I haven't changed it. I keep it at that. And it seems to work well for the maturation and seems to suit our bond room temperatures and everything.
And can you explain again, I know you touched on it, but the fluctuations in temperature and, what actual loss and evaporation you're feeling up there?
Yes, we do get some losses. For instance, in the smaller casks, they generally weigh somewhere around 3 kilo heavier when I empty them, because that's what's left in the wood, so you're not going to get that out. And then there are some evaporative losses. Not that great though, because our temperature doesn't go above 20 degrees here, in Celsius once again. So with our weather on the coast here, we don't get the frost, so we're not down around the zeros, we're down around the 5s and the 6s. So it varies from 6 to 20, whereas some other areas in Tasmania can vary from, especially in the summer, from 40 degrees during the day, and then they've got snow on the mountain, which will bring the temperature down into 6s and 7s. So there's a vast change. Ours is quite stable, and that has an influence on the whiskey itself.
Would you say you're losing in evaporation around that Scottish number of 2% per year?
Yes.
Roughly?
Yeah, roughly about that, yes. Yeah.
All right. And what styles of casks? I know that it's grown since I've last been there, but sizes, types of casks. Obviously, we have bourbon, sherry, port, and Pinot Noir here with our forecast. But what's going on, if we could see the maturation center?
It varies in the size from 25-litre casks up to 200-litre casks. The casks, I reuse them. In fact, I'm about to shave and char them for their third fill, some of them. So the preparation on the cask is very important, and what I mean by preparation is the amount of toasting, which is a low heat to pull the sugars out, and then charring. Do you do a heavy char, medium char, light char, depending on what you want to do. The actual casks that we use vary from bourbon casks, port and sherry, both European oak and Australian, also from the Australian fortified industry.
Okay.
We also use and have been experimenting and had quite successful with Pinot casks, Pinot wine casks. We use them from a vineyard that, how would I say, they do all their fermentation through natural fermentation. They don't add a yeast, they rely on the yeast of the grape, and the flavours left in that are phenomenal, really, really good.
And we did try some Shiraz casks, and our first lot were very nice, quite different, but quite popular. They sold out very quickly. We have got some more in bond that probably won't be ready for a little while.
Yeah.
And yes, we put our first 200-litre barrel down a bit over 12 months ago. So that's a nice Pinot one from St. Apius. But it's going to be peated whiskey. I'm not sure about that myself, but anyway.
Hey,
So
the peat aggression can go down. So maybe this one will just have to sit for much longer so that it's to Jules' liking. So that it's palatable. And I think, I don't know, I'm just, every time we've spoken about the Shiraz matured whiskey, Jules, you light up. So I'm thinking maybe that's been your favorite of the releases. But I bet it was tasty. You know,
Yes.
and you're maturing exclusively in these styles. They're not finishes, correct?
No, full maturation in them. We have experimented a couple of times with finishes with bourbon barrels, and we've transferred them for like 20 days into a sherry barrel, which has been successful with the flavours that it's brought over. But most of it is single cask. Because of the results we're getting, we haven't needed to do the finishing off so much.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about charring and toasting. You're actually, once you receive the cask, you're doing that yourself, correct? You're actually de-charring and re-charring?
I have that done at the cooperage when the cask, say it's 100-litre cask, so it's been built out of a bigger cask, they'll do it. But when I use it the second or third time, I pull them apart, shave the staves, and then toast and then char it. Ready to do the next run. Yeah.
Well, and that leads me a bit, I mean, taking some of that control of your casks, not having to pay someone to do that and ship it back and forth. But I know from my travels in Tasmania and in Australia, the first trip, casks were and I think they're a major pain point for lots of whiskey producers around the world. You know, it's obviously such an important piece of the puzzle for making whiskey. It's also very expensive, and it's getting more and more expensive as whiskey becomes more popular and we want different styles and different flavors. But being all the way over there, you know, we can talk about wine casks, but you still need an ecosystem of cooperages. And can you talk a little bit about how that was setting up and maybe not having access to every type of cask that you may have wanted?
Yes, when we first started, we didn't have, when I first started, there was one gentleman that did do casks down in Hobart. Most of the distilleries going then were bringing them in from the mainland. The person that I'm referring to actually started a bigger cooperage, and that was very good. And then, of course, the more distilleries came on board. They were busier than ever, so it was harder to get casks.
And harder for us because we only wanted a small amount. So
yeah, not being big, we didn't want like hundreds of them. So then we were very fortunate that a family from Bundaberg, the father and son moved down here to start a cooperage, and they had been working for Bundaberg building barrels or the father had for about 35 years. So his knowledge was so extensive, it was just amazing. And the casks we get from them are quite amazing. Yeah.
Yes, they've got. I think they came down for a quieter lifestyle, and now they're busier than ever. they've included the whole family, the daughter and the girlfriend. So, which is good, and it's nice to have something nice and close. Yeah. Yes, and Mathew and Laurie talk a lot about, you know, what he wants and how he wants things prepared, and he's got good ideas. So It's really works well. So we look forward to tasting some of these whiskies out of these casks in a few years.
Yeah, for sure. And even when you just say sherry and port, like you mentioned, there's a whole fortified wine industry in Australia. So you're still not necessarily going to get the flavors that you imagine from Spain, and from Portugal, which I've really enjoyed. And actually with the cask we brought over, a lot of people have been saying, oh, I always love sherry matured single malts. And I say, wait, take a look at my tasting notes. Just go into it knowing that, it might not be the exact style of sherry that you're used to, which I love because everything for me is about exploring new whiskeys and pushing the boundaries of our flavor experience. And if you're only drinking Scotch, which you're lucky if you are, it's great. We all love it. That's mostly what I have on my shelves too. But, you start to get some of these consistent, styles that exist, and you don't really break out of those. And it's that sherry, bourbon, and port, and it's all Spain, Portugal, United States. So for me, it's always been fun just trying to understand, okay, this is Australian sherry or Australian port, but I have not explored that world, and I should go in a little bit more open-minded. And it's fun to see your spicy, fruity, viscous new make spirit go into these different styles, because they really take on their own personalities. And so that's why we had to bring in all four. We couldn't just pick from some of the guests that we. So.
Yes, I think that is the problem at tastings. Sometimes they say, "Oh, we like that one." Now we can't decide, or they can't decide.
Yeah.
So yes, the barrels plays a very important part.
Mm-hmm. And with these barrels being remade and smaller barrels, is this correct that you don't always know exactly what type of oak it is, or it could be a variety of different American oak, European oak, because they're rebuilding something. It's not like in Scotland where they're getting sherry butts and they know exactly where that sherry butt lived before. So, it's also, that must feel a little bit risky for you too, not always knowing exactly what you've got.
Yes, previously that's how it's been, and we've been lucky that we've done well with it. How it is at the moment, I know exactly what we're getting now, because whereas before I wasn't really too sure. Could have been, was it a port barrel from Australia, or was it a port barrel from Portugal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
it was. But now,
I can imagine that's not the most important thing in the world. Obviously things have to taste good, and you're going to taste it and see how it progresses, and that's what matters. But that has to be frustrating. And someone walking in, us being whiskey nerds right now, and not being able to answer that for no fault of your own, and someone being like, well, where's the traceability? And you're like, we have no idea what's going on at these cooperages. So I'm glad that you have a new source.
And you don't get a certificate of certification telling you.
Yeah, you need to put some sort of like with my dog, some sort of microchip into the cask as it leaves.
That's it.
You know where it goes.
The other side to it too is, like, let's say a port barrel and it's a European oak.
Mm-hmm.
You could have two of them macerating together and they don't taste anything like each other.
Right.
And it can be a simple thing that most of the wood in that barrel A came out of the tree that grew up on the hill. Barrel B was made out of the tree that grew down in the gully. Different sunlight, different soil, so it's going to make slight differences.
No, you're right. I mean, that's the magic of oak, is we still don't really know everything that's going on. And even over here at the New Chart American Oak factories, Independent Stave Company, and all of these places here in the States, that it's pretty much tried and true, right? new charred oak. There's no messing around with any sort of fortified, different sizes,
Yep.
standard barrel size. But even then, they have research teams because it's still not quite understood. Like, why does this one, obviously, okay, location in the warehouse, but how can a same distillation run of a cask that came from the same batch of staves that are sitting on the same spot in the warehouse next to each
Yeah.
other taste so wildly different? And so you're right, even if we want to trace it as far back as possible, we still have no clue what
That's
actually
it.
is going on. Just drink it.
The-
I should
These
just
are
leave it at that.
These are the secrets we don't know that are good not to know.
It's good. We have to keep some mystery, right?
That's it. Yes.
So, all right. Well, thanks for your time. Yeah. So